Have you ever seen this building, or these flags, representing 193 countries from all over the globe? This is the United Nations headquarters in New York City, the heart of an organization born from the ashes of a world at war. In 1945, after two devastating global conflicts, nations came together with a radical idea to create a body that would prevent future wars and foster cooperation. But how did this monumental organization come to be, and what does it actually do? Let's rewind the clock and uncover the story of the United Nations. To understand the UN, we first have to look at its predecessor, the League of Nations. Formed after World War I, the League was the world's first major attempt at collective security. Its goal was noble: to maintain world peace through diplomacy. Historical footage from the era shows diplomats meeting, full of hope and ambition. They settled some disputes and did important humanitarian work. However, the League had critical weaknesses. Major world powers, like the United States, never joined. It had no army to enforce its decisions, and when aggressive nations like Japan, Italy, and Germany began their campaigns of expansion in the 1930s, the League was powerless to stop them. The dream of peace died as the world plunged into the chaos of World War II, and the League of Nations quietly faded into history. Its failure, however, provided crucial lessons for what would come next. Even as World War II raged, world leaders were already planning for a better future. The journey to create the United Nations was a multi-step process, a series of crucial meetings and declarations that built momentum toward a new global order. It all started in August 1941. Aboard a warship in the Atlantic, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill met in secret. The document they drafted, known as the Atlantic Charter, wasn't a formal treaty, but a powerful statement of principles for a post-war world. It called for self-determination for all peoples, freer trade, and a system of general security. This charter became the foundational blueprint, the first glimmer of hope for what would eventually become the UN. The next major step came on January 1, 1942, just weeks after the attack on Pearl Harbor brought the United States into the war. In Washington, D.C., representatives from 26 allied nations, including the US, the UK, China, and the Soviet Union, gathered. They signed the Declaration by United Nations. This was the very first time the term United Nations was officially used, coined by President Roosevelt himself. By signing, these countries pledged to use their full resources to fight the Axis powers and agreed not to make a separate peace. More importantly, they endorsed the principles of the Atlantic Charter, transforming it from a bilateral agreement into a shared vision for the Allied war effort and the peace that would follow. This declaration was a symbol of unity and a formal commitment to building a new world organization. As the tide of the war began to turn in favor of the Allies, the focus shifted from winning the war to designing the peace. In the late summer and fall of 1944, representatives from the Big Four, the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and China, met at a historic estate in Washington, D.C. called Dumbarton Oaks. Their mission was to draft the basic structure of the new organization. For weeks, they debated and negotiated the intricate details. They hammered out the fundamental framework, proposing a General Assembly for all members, a powerful Security Council to handle peace and security issues, an international court, and a secretariat to run the day-to-day operations. The Dumbarton Oaks Conference laid the institutional groundwork, creating the skeleton that would soon be given life and purpose. The final, decisive moment arrived in the spring of 1945. The war in Europe was ending, but the world was still reeling. From April to June, delegates from 50 nations gathered in San Francisco for the United Nations Conference on International Organization. This wasn't just a meeting of the big powers. Countries large and small had a voice. For 2 months, they debated, amended, and refined the Dumbarton Oaks proposals. They argued passionately about the veto power in the Security Council, the role of smaller nations, and the importance of human rights. Finally, on June 26, 1945, in a solemn ceremony, the delegates stood one by one to sign the United Nations Charter. This charter was an international treaty, the constitution of the new organization. With its signing, the United Nations was officially born, formally coming into existence on October 24, 1945, after a majority of the signatory nations had ratified the Charter. So, what is the mission of this massive global organization? The UN Charter lays out four main goals, which serve as its guiding purpose. First and foremost is to maintain international peace and security. This means preventing conflict, helping parties in conflict make peace, and creating the conditions to allow peace to hold and flourish. Second, the UN aims to develop friendly relations among nations. This is based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples. The goal is to build a world where countries can coexist peacefully and work together as partners. Third is to achieve international cooperation in solving global problems. This covers a huge range of issues: economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian. Whether it's fighting poverty, combating climate change, or responding to natural disasters, the UN serves as a hub for collective action. And finally, the fourth goal is to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations in the attainment of these common ends, promoting and encouraging respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. To achieve these ambitious goals, the UN operates on a set of core principles enshrined in its charter. These are the fundamental rules that all member states agree to follow. The most important of these is the principle of the sovereign equality of all its members. This means that every nation, big or small, rich or poor, has the same rights and one vote in the General Assembly. Another key principle is that all members shall settle their international disputes by peaceful means. The UN provides a platform for diplomacy and mediation, encouraging dialogue over conflict. Furthermore, the Charter states that all members shall refrain from the threat or use of force against any state. This is the cornerstone of the UN security framework. And finally, there's the principle of non-intervention. The UN is not authorized to intervene in matters which are essentially within the domestic jurisdiction of any state, though this principle can be set aside when the Security Council identifies a threat to international peace and security. These principles create a framework for a more orderly and just world. To carry out its diverse mandate, the UN is structured around 6 main organs, each with a specific role. You've probably heard of the first one, the General Assembly. It's the main deliberative body, like a world parliament where all 193 member states are represented. They debate major global issues, from peace and security to development and international law, and each country gets one vote. While its resolutions are not legally binding, they carry the weight of world opinion. Next is the Security Council, which has primary responsibility for maintaining international peace and security. It has 15 members, 5 permanent members each: China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, and 10 non-permanent members elected for 2-year terms. The Security Council can make binding decisions, impose sanctions, and even authorize the use of force. The third main organ is the Secretariat. This is the UN's administrative arm, led by the Secretary General. It is composed of tens of thousands of international staff members who carry out the day-to-day work of the organization. They work in duty stations all over the world, implementing the decisions of the General Assembly and Security Council, managing peacekeeping operations, and running humanitarian programs. Then there's the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, located in The Hague. It's the UN's principal judicial organ, settling legal disputes between states and giving advisory opinions on legal questions. The Economic and Social Council, or ECOSOC, is the central platform for discussing the world's economic, social, and environmental challenges and making policy recommendations. Finally, the Trusteeship Council was established to oversee the transition of former colonies to self-governance or independence. Having completed its mission, it suspended operations in 1994, but it remains one of the 6 principal organs. From its ambitious founding in 1945 to its complex operations today, the United Nations has been a central player on the world stage for over 75 years. It was born from a desire to prevent the horrors of war and build a world based on peace, justice, and cooperation. The journey from the Atlantic Charter to the San Francisco Conference was a testament to the power of international collaboration, even in the darkest of times. Through its main organs, the UN works every day to maintain peace, protect human rights, and foster development around the globe. It's not a perfect organization, and it faces immense challenges in a world that is constantly changing. But its enduring mission to serve as a beacon of hope and a platform for dialogue remains as crucial today as it was in 1945. It represents our collective aspiration for a more stable, prosperous, and just world for all. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey through the history of the UN interesting, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the organizations and events that shape our world. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next video. See you next time.